what's going on, everybody? This is Over the Top with Chad and Tony.
My name is Tony, a.k.a. Friday the 14th.
And I'm Hot Mike Chance.
I am BJ the DJ.
And I'm Chad Arms, a.k.a. Chatty Bobby. That
That works so much smoother.
So
Thank you
much
for
better.
doing it.
And we're
So much
back,
better.
episode 44. Shout out to Tom Rathman from the San Francisco 49ers.
Shout out to Eric
Outstanding.
Davis.
Shout out to Eric Davis. Great baseball player. We're here, episode 44, man.
Hank Aaron.
Aaron.
Henry Aaron himself.
The man.
We got Trouble Spirits. We got Revolution One Media, and we got the Natural Disasters bringing it
Boom.
to you.
Right in your
I feel
face.
like they don't contribute much to the podcast
They're,
other than being
look,
there.
Just there.
They're there
just,
for
we're
the
just
good
using the
looks.
name. We're here.
Yeah,
we're,
they're
we're,
just
u-
there.
We're using the clout from there.
We got to have a Jimmy Hart to be. At
We
some
need a
point.
Jimmy Hart.
We need
Yep.
him to peek around the Trouble
Yeah,
Spirits.
just
too.
peeking around.
Like we're just kind of like this. You know what I'm saying?
Have
But we're
them
here,
passed
man.
out by
Little
it.
peekaboo.
We're going to be talking about the Montreal Screwjob today.
Yes, yeah.
We don't
this
have
is a
any
big one.
notes, so this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah.
Wrestling's longest running work.
Facts.
Maybe.
I've been watching. I know we all have been watching a bunch of stuff on this whole situation and everything. I'm looking forward to getting into this, but we may. I don't think. Should we
Just say it.
Get right. I don't think. Well, it was a complete work.
What just happened?
Stuttering Stanley here. I don't think
What
it
are you
was
scared for?
complete work on everybody's end. I think there was parts that knew what was going on, and there was
Yeah.
people that had no clue. That was it's just a big old fiasco.
You want
that-
to
Yeah.
know my honest opinion on the whole thing is I feel like the only person who was left in the dark is Earl Hebner. I feel like
Shout out Earl
everybody knew about it until Earl Hebner.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he was told right when it started.
What about the boys in the back, though?
I think everybody knew.
Really?
I do. Because you've had so many conflicting stories about the fight afterwards, about all this stuff. I think everybody knew that something was going down.
Yep.
I think so. That's just me. I mean,
Young Jock.
yeah.
I mean, this thing, it goes way back.
oh, yeah.
Way back.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Yeah, I
Where-
mean, I think it even started before the Hart Foundation and before DX and all that stuff. I think it started back whenever you had matches between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, like in the earlier 90s, mid 90s, like even back
Yep.
to
Yeah.
then.
Where
Oh, I
they-
feel like the
Rockers
hatred
Heart
has been
Foundation
there.
time frame, yeah.
I
Yep.
feel like the hatred has been there for years.
Yep.
But there's so many things now that we've talked about this being a work and all this other new content has come out that makes me go back and watch it with a different perspective. now,
Yeah.
right? You start noticing things you didn't necessarily notice before. You start seeing things that were like, oh, I forgot that was there. Forgot things went down like that. The reality is they had so many opportunities to take that belt off Brett in that match.
Yeah.
For it to end the way it did lets me know that somebody had to be in on it.
Well, they had so many opportunities to take the belt off of him before even
Before even Summer-
before the Survivor Series.
Yeah, facts.
Should we just go ahead, just in case someone's been living underneath the rock for the last 30
if they-
years?
And
should
they
we,
found this after
Yeah.
not seeing any of that.
should we let them just let them know kind of what the screw job
Yeah,
was?
tell them, Chance.
So basically, you had Bret the Hitman Hart was on his way out, going to WCW possibly, but on his way out of WWE, and he, the way that history tells it is that he didn't want to let the belt go in Montreal. He wanted to drop it the next night, or maybe have something else happen to where he didn't lose the belt that night to Shawn Michaels because they had heat and
That was his hometown.
Yep, and we can kind of dive into why they had heat a little later on, but they had heat with each other, and he didn't want to drop the belt there. So basically, Vince and Shawn and maybe who knows who else, they decided that they would go into business for themselves and make sure that Bret lost the championship that night. So they had Shawn Michaels put Bret Hart's finishing move on him and
All of a sudden,
called for the bell.
Yeah.
Vince called for the bell. The referee called for the bell. And supposedly Bret didn't know anything about it, got upset, and that's where we're at.
That's it. Shows why we work. Good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. That's it.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Yep.
Uh,
But that's how history tells it.
Right.
Yeah.
but like you said, just so many years prior between the bad blood and Shawn, because Shawn has admitted during this time he was a prick. He was. He even admitted he was hard to get along with.
Yeah.
And in a competitive environment like the WWE, you're gonna have a lot of egos, and you're
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
have people that it's competitive. You have to look out for yourself in that environment, just like in sports or anything else. You have to. So I think that's what was going on there, just a competitive rivalry, kind of like The Rock and Austin, or you got two guys that could be the top guy, and they're just fighting it out, and then you got the jealousy there.
Yeah.
Because of that situation.
And this is almost like almost right before the internet's taken off and all that stuff. So kayfabe is still alive and well during this time and everything.
Which kayfabe is?
Just being the scripted part of wrestling and everything like that. It's back then you didn't have internet blogs where you could see wrestler. Back, you had the heels and the faces, the good guys and the bad guys would not ride with each other back in those days, just to show that, hey, we don't get along. We're not best buddies.
Up with the story,
but backstage, we're best buddies. We're drinking beers together and all that stuff. It's just pre-internet, and I think that just has something to go with it. It's just one of the biggest mind fucks in wrestling history.
Right.
Yeah, and I think then that does play a big part in this, because back then you could fool people a lot easier than you can now.
Yeah.
I mean, now if you see something on wrestling you're not sure of, you just Google it and it's going to tell you
everything about it.
in and out, every podcast, blog, interview, breakdown, stuff like what we're doing.
Yeah.
So so last night I was actually watching Wrestling with Shadows again. I rewatched it. There are so many things in there. So of course, Brett was set to leave WWF, right?
Yep.
And WCW made him an offer. It was 3 years at like $9 million or something like that. Something
And
short, right?
half the dates.
Half the dates. And so then Vince comes in and offers him a 25-year something contract,
Kind of like a Bobby Bonilla.
like a Bobby Bonilla deal,
Like
right?
a Bobby Bonilla
He
deal.
wasn't going to make the money, but he said the loyalty was everything to him.
Because Brett wanted to stay.
He wanted to stay. And then there was something along the lines of Vince coming to him saying, hey, we're not making the money we were going to make. You need to take the deal with WCW. And when I was watching the Survivor Series match, at the very beginning of the Survivor Series, they start talking about controversy off the rip, right? So that lets me think that something was set in place beforehand. And then if you start looking at the cast of characters that were involved in it, like why was Triple H even included in those conversations about a decision? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just didn't make sense. Like,
because this was before he was with Stephanie.
This was before he was with Stephanie. So, and I know you can talk about the clique and all this stuff, but I feel like more people were in on this than they want to admit to. I feel like, Taker, for instance, because Taker had even, I heard an interview where Taker had said he had offered to do the job to Brett. Brett would lose the belt to Taker, but he wouldn't lose it to Shawn no matter where they were.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the fact that Taker even presented that opportunity, that idea, lets me know that Taker was included in conversations as well.
But then you hear Bruce Pritchard talk about how Taker was mad
and sitting
that
in Gorilla.
That's what I think it's a work. That's why I think it was all a work. And I feel like Taker presenting that opportunity was him saying, I got a feeling something screwy is about to happen here. Let's do it a different way to keep business.
How do you not tell Undertaker what's going on?
How do you not tell Undertaker? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Undertaker is the
evidently
pinnacle of all of this.
And from the reports and everything, Undertaker is the one that went and got McMahon and brought him into the locker room.
And that was another thing. So you talk about the locker room incident. Like, there's so many different accounts of what happened in the locker room.
But there's
so
no
many
video.
People are saying that he got uppercutted. If you look at Vince the next night on Raw in the interview, he has a black eye. Now I'm not a physicist. I'm not a person who knows anything about the human body more than what my own body is, but the chin and the eye are way far apart.
Yeah, you don't uppercut somebody in the eye, bro.
Yeah, how you gonna uppercut him in the
That
eye?
and supposedly he broke his ankle too in the whole squabble by Briscoe stepping on his foot or something like that.
And there's the only
Shout
video
out to the
you
Stooges.
see. The only video you see from that fight was McMahon stumbling out of the locker room.
Yeah, and that's from Wrestling with Shadows, and that's from the whole Wrestling with Shadows.
And Vince is a showman, so Vince is gonna milk it for what it is.
If you got a broken ankle, you're not walking walking out of that locker room.
X-Pac made a good point. I think it was him in a shoot interview with him and Kevin Nash where he said Vince never sold anything. Like, he didn't sell the quads.
Exactly.
He didn't sell, and you think if he knows the camera is going to be on him, he's not going to sell a punch from one of his guys. Like, he would have ate that punch and just kept going. He wouldn't have sold it the way he did.
Well, see, and two, Going back to like what Chance was saying, where the match ends, they ring the bell. They switch the belt. Brett doesn't have a clue what's going on, right? Then Brett throws a temper tantrum, and he throws the monitors from the tables around
in a very showman way. Like
very showman way. Then he gets in the ring and he spits. Vince McMahon's at the floor, and I can't show any of this. I'll maybe show pictures, but I can't show videos. He spits on Vince McMahon twice, and Vince McMahon wipes the spit off of his face and like mumbles some shit. Then Brett says WCW, like saying
that was off camera. That was after the whole WCW thing was after the pay-per-view ended.
But I'm saying you can see it now though.
Yeah, you can see it now.
So they show all that. So like, my thing is, if it's a shoot and Vince gets spit on, why would he tell the cameras? Why would the cameras stay on Vince McMahon?
Yeah. Right.
Why would they not turn away? Because anytime real shit happens in WC or wrestling, they don't show the cameras on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll go
it's
to
like somebody streaking it across the football
or
field.
when Owen Hart shit happened.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah,
They
they're going to go
didn't
away
show
from
that.
it.
Like they're going to cut away from it because that shit wasn't supposed to happen.
And I think we're missing two key pieces of evidence here in this whole thing. The fact that we've gotten the Wrestling with Shadows documentary, and we've gotten the Dark Side of the Ring documentary that uses WWF footage heavily that had to get signed off on. If Vince wanted this thing to go away, it would have went away, and he would have never got clearance to put that footage out.
Yeah.
Ever.
And see, I think that was part of with Brett signing that contract too, was having this film crew coming in and following him around.
And so I read about that too as well. So the film crew was brought in, and once everything was filmed, it was presented to Vince for approval. Vince tried to renege on the deal because he's like, I don't like how this is going to paint me. Mm-hmm. So you're getting ready to birth one of the greatest heel characters of all time with Mr. McMahon. So you didn't like how you were portrayed in this because it made you look a certain way. So then they offered to sell the rights to this video to Turner, which in return, Vince still had to sign off on the Undertaker appearance. All this talent that was WWE contracted Vince had to approve this. Mm-hmm. So when he said he was going to take it to Turner, and Turner offered him all this money for it, they were going to put it out despite the lawsuits. Mm-hmm. They didn't care. So Vince said, "All right, I'll sign off and I'll approve it." So he had a chance to dead that thing right in the water right then and there, but he didn't. He let it go.
That also makes the this is at a time when that comes out, that people don't know the behind the scenes. They don't know that it's not real.
Well, that WCW is crushing the WWF at this point in the ratings.
So like the fact that he signed off on that, knowing how it would make them look because it's exposing the business.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a thing back then.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why. And then like the next night, he does the interview with the little black guy, and he was like, "Brett screwed Brett. I have no sympathy for what happened to Brett." So it's like you turn into, all of a sudden you take what happened and you go do a public interview, and then you all of a sudden got this different swagger about you.
And they even DX was even in the ring, and they brought out Bret Hart in a little person to mock him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they could have let it die, but they didn't. They kept poking the bear because Bret Hart still had family in WWF at the time.
Yeah, Owen was still there. British Bulldog
and
was
you're
still
going to think they're going to let that fly. They would have walked out.
Yep.
Why are you sticking around? You could walk out and go to WCW all day, every day after your no compete calls is up. But they stuck around, and I feel like Owen Hart got punished because of it. He was in the Nation of Domination, for crying out loud. Yeah. They didn't do anything to elevate Owen Hart at that point.
No, they were burying Owen.
They were burying Owen.
And then ultimately, that's a whole other story. But ultimately, had a hand in killing Owen Hart.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, that's the truth. I feel like.
Well, another thing that stands out is McMahon was heavy on commentary at this time. It was him, JR, and the King, or usually him and the King on commentary at this point. Going into this match,
he comes off the table.
And it's JR and the King doing commentary.
Wait, you think WWE had something to do with killing Owen Hart?
Not having something to do with it.
Oh, I was like, whoa.
No. I'm saying WWE, not the negligence. Absolutely.
Yeah, the negligence.
Okay.
Of it,
Woo. Now I was like, whoa, hot take here.
No, I'm saying the negligence of WWE is what got him killed, bro.
Sure.
That's why they got sued, and that's why that his wife won.
Yeah. I agree.
Like that's what I mean. Like he should have not been doing that gimmick.
No.
He shouldn't have been going from the ceiling. Like the negligence of that, them just saying, "Oh yeah, it's fine, it's fine."
But didn't WCW even mock that at one point? It had like a Sting fall from the rafter, harnessed up, and he hit the rail. Did they not mock that?
I don't remember that.
I don't know.
think I remember seeing something like that.
What was you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, from the standpoint of, I wouldn't put it past Vince McMahon to do something like that if the Montreal Screwjob was a real thing, just in spite of. I'm not calling Vince McMahon a murderer, but I'm saying I could see him doing something like that just out of spite.
I just feel
if,
like
if it was all legit.
if it wasn't legit, if it wasn't a work, I would have walked out with Brett. I'm his brother. Like, you're going to do this to my brother. What are you going to do to me? I'm not even world champion. You walk out. I mean, you take the risk of getting sued or whatever, and you fight. You're like, I'm done with this. But they stuck around and they stayed.
Well, that and the whole thing too. When in the locker room, there's been many reports where Brett tells Vince, "If I'm out of the shower and you're still sitting here, I'm punching you."
Yeah,
he gave him plenty of warnings. Like, why would Vince stay in there?
And Bruce's whole thing was, I'm gonna give him one. He owes one. I owe him one.
And
is what Bruce said.
In reality,
Vince
you don't owe
said.
him anything.
Yeah,
and I think there's the whole thing too about when after the match was over, when you hear Brett talking about him and Shawn and Triple H are sitting there and they're taking like their boots off and stuff, and he's like, "Shawn, do you have anything to do with that?" And he said, Shawn was like, "Well, you see the video of that."
Yeah.
Well,
I swear to God, I had
that's
nothing
the
to
weird
do with
part
that.
because it was only Brett, Shawn, and supposedly only Brett, Shawn, Vince, and maybe Bruce Pritchard in there.
Well,
Taker, Hawk, Triple H, all those guys were sitting in the hallway because the footage shows them talking to Bret Hart's wife about, I know you were in on it or whatever. So the only people who really know about it are the people that was in the room about the fight.
Originally, wasn't it Cornette's idea to do?
That's what
the double
Cornette
cross?
said.
well,
Double
yeah,
cross?
Cornette says it was his idea.
Okay. But he said he
Russo
wasn't.
says it was his.
But Cornette
his
also
idea.
says that as soon as the match ended, he jumped in his car and left.
Yep.
Yeah, because he said that they tried every scenario with Brett, and Brett didn't want to do any of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, just going by business, you don't want the belt to leave with him.
No, you can't.
I
You
mean,
can't
Medusa
have a
ruined
Medusa.
that for everybody.
Yeah,
you
you
can't
can't have a
and
Medusa
you can play,
effect.
and we can sit here, and I'm gonna say this now. What we're saying is not the majority opinion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Most people say it's a shoot.
Yeah.
We're against the grain today, baby.
But Chance, you did say you wanted to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this scenario.
Okay.
So explain why you think that it could have been a shoot.
Well, I know that I never really heard that Bret Hart was difficult, but I do think that he took, just from being in that business, I think that he took the business serious, and I think that he believed that he really would look bad. But he has lost in
Montreal before.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think it was because
It was his last.
Yep. And if what really happened between him and Shawn, where Shawn said he wouldn't do the job for Brett after Brett said he would do it for him, I think that just pride. But it doesn't make sense that Brett wouldn't go along with losing to Taker or losing to someone like that. One of the things, the best arguments that I heard for it being a shoot was that why would Bret Hart take so long to come back to WWE?
Yep.
And I feel like that had to do not with the screw job. I feel like he would have came back earlier if it hadn't been for Owen Hart's death. I think that's what
100%.
caused the real relationship between.
When did he come back? How long ago was?
It was like 2008 or something.
Yeah.
They put him in the Hall of Fame in 06, right?
Yep.
Maybe that's when it was.
Yeah. It was around that time. Yep.
It was just so much awkwardness between Shawn and Brett, even back then. Like, Bret Hart was never a really good actor at all. He never came off as being someone who was well seasoned in acting, right? So his attitude and his demeanor was always very like stale. And when they came back, when he came back and they're in the ring, it's him and Shawn. Shawn even tried to play it up like, I've been waiting, blah blah blah, for this moment. And tries to play a heel in the sense of doing that, and then he extends his hand and says he's sorry. Just the showmanship of how they built that moment up for it to fall as flat as it did lets me know that this thing is not legit. It's not. I mean, I feel like there's so many people in on this thing.
Well, and thing is too, what we forgot to talk about leading up to the screw job, what really fueled the fire to that too is the whole promos back and forth with Shawn and Brett.
Sunny Days.
The Sunny Days promo when Shawn is alluding that Brett is having an affair on his wife with Sunny.
Yep.
And then there's the whole thing about Brett saying, Shawn posing for Playgirl, and Like there was those whole back and forth shots. There was a couple of times
Well,
where
that and the European title when Sean, for no reason, won the European title over the British
Davey
Bulldog over in England and all that stuff. When Sean did not need the European title at
whatsoever.
that time. And that was all Sean's politicking in the back. And I think that was another little jab at Bret.
To me, I feel like Bret Hart felt like the business was leaving him behind.
Yeah.
So he was really pushing for, okay, if I'm leaving, I want to make sure I leave with my head held high. And from what I also remember, that WWE gave him almost total control over his outcomes for
he had
60 days.
Like the last 30 days of his contract, he had full control of character control.
And so what better way for him to leave WWE feeling like he got screwed, and then he walks into WCW looking like a victim, and he's the hottest babyface
he's the
in
guest
there.
referee. WCW just
They
shits the
fumbled. They fumbled
It was
his
not a
debut.
fumble.
They
That
had
was
an
just shit the bed.
opportunity
Yeah.
to bring him in as the hottest babyface in the business, right? A victim. He could come in and cut promos on WWF for days.
Bischoff paid
And
him
they
to
didn't.
bury him.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like.
Yeah.
Bischoff he never liked Bret Hart. He never says anything
I feel like that was a
positive
Turner
about Bret
play.
Hart.
Turner
That
wanted
was,
that.
was,
Turner wanted that big name.
Because
and
with the Sting and Hogan match, bringing him in as a guest enforcer or whatever it was, like that was a perfect opportunity for you to make money. If Hogan was worried about where he's going next, you go Bret Hart Hogan next. You let Sting have his run with the title. You let Hogan and Hart have a program, and then you're off to the races with that. You don't have to have another match with Sting.
Yeah.
Sting is the franchise of WCW. Like Hogan could have had the NWO getting involved or whatever, and Bret Hart comes out and saves all of that from happening, and then he gets involved with Hogan some kind of way, costs Hogan the belt, and then Sting's riding off into sunset as a WCW champion, and then you set up Bret Hart and Hogan.
Yeah.
That was the best way to do it, but they didn't. They fumbled it, and it fell flat on its face.
Well, not only that too. Like Brett said, in it's been multiples, but most recently I saw it on the dark side. He was talking about a conversation he had with Shawn Michaels about how I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, "Man, I'm willing to look out for you. I'm going to take good care of you in this ring or whatever." And basically, Shawn told him, "I don't respect you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look out for you, more or less."
I can't see that. Shawn Michaels
barely speaks about it ever. Have you noticed that too? He never talks about it.
And that's the other thing. Like, this is something. Look at what Vince McMahon has kind of pushed under the radar. Even, like I said, look at how much footage and how many people were involved in both of those documentaries. They had to get signed releases from WWE to put that out. WWE could have said, no, we're not talking about that anymore. It's over with. Dead in the water. And then they would have been forced to create a scenario or create the situations that they talk about. They could have still freely talked about it, just not with the stock content and the videos that they use. So the fact that those releases had to be signed and given permission from Vince McMahon lets me know that Vince is okay with people thinking that this thing is a work and to keep this thing going for years and years to come.
And too, another interesting thing, like he was saying, all the WWE documentaries about it, you don't hear anybody saying it's a work. The one person you do hear saying it is Scott Hall, but it's not. It's on Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Scott Hall. He's the only person, and Kevin Nash, that come out and say that that's a work. They're the only two. And maybe I don't know if X-Pac you said did. So the Click. So that should tell you something. If those three guys who know Vince McMahon better than anybody,
and
are involved.
And Kevin Nash has been a booker. Scott Hall come up with a lot of good ideas. So I mean,
X-Pac's got a great like wrestling mind. Like, man, it don't make sense.
The math ain't mathin'.
But it is interesting that they're still making it up this long later, though.
Yeah.
Like they're still going with it.
And what's crazy, this whole thing, and it all ends with Michaels losing the belt at WrestleMania the next year to Stone Cold. So
who became the biggest star in the history of wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that came out of this one situation that absolutely exploded the WWE.
And the main thing of that was Mr. McMahon.
Yeah. Because the WWE was treading water at this time. I mean, they were absolutely.
97 was not a good year for WWE.
They were getting their asses kicked by WCW every single week.
Yep. All they had was Stone Cold right now. Stone Cold had just started popping at the early, and him and Brett had the double turn where That was WrestleMania 13 that year.
Yeah.
But that was really the only thing in wrestling WWE wise that people were into was Stone Cold.
They were losing money on the road.
But then you still got
the house shows.
you got the Rock versus Mankind match where they referenced the screw job in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like Montreal all over again. I'll never forget Jim Ross said that. It's like, why are you beating the dead horse? Like, let it die. If it's, why would you want to keep bringing that up? If it wasn't a work, if you're
because they was a work, bro.
It
It was a work.
Who do y'all think was in on it?
All
Who
of
do you
them.
think knew?
I think. Okay, so here's what I think. I've been thinking about this the last few days. I think that Bret Hart, because it's very well known, you can tell by his interviews, he really thinks he earned that championship.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
and like Bruce Pritchard was like, bro, like,
But he's
nobody earned. Nobody, you didn't beat anybody.
He's
like,
from
you're
the
chosen.
business, so I think it just means a lot to him.
I think that he really does believe that was his. And he wasn't wanting to work with them.
Yeah.
And he was leaving anyways. And I think that finally they were just like, let's do this, and let's just vow that we're gonna keep it. Like, that's what I think, man.
Yep.
Because like the documentary and all that shit, the fact that they cleared that documentary to expose the WWE.
Yep.
So it's like, why would Vince want to clear? Why would he clear that if it was real?
I think everyone's sitting in Gorilla. Taker,
So Bruce
Pritchard, Russo, everyone's sitting in Gorilla. I think like I said, the only person on the outside looking in was Earl Hebner, and I really feel like, because if you look at his motions when he wakes up, he's stumbling several times where he just looked like he was just kind of going through the motion. He didn't want to make the call. He didn't know when to make the call.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see the sharpshooter. He looks at him. He does this. He goes, ring the bell. And then he goes to raise Sean's hand, and then he just gets out of the ring and takes off. Because I think he was so terrified at that moment.
Well,
I think he's the only one left in the dark.
Well, there's also reports of that his brother's sitting outside the arena with the car running, waiting on that match to get over with, so Earl can run to the car and go.
But on the counter side of that, there's a story that Earl was telling on Dark Side of the Ring where he was getting on a plane and they upgraded his seat to first class, and he's sitting up there talking to Brett. So maybe it was Brett kind of filling him out to see if he had heard what the plan was already, knowing that I'm getting screwed.
I think he was working them.
I think he was working it.
And Brett's going on there making Earl feel horrible. He was like, man, I really did think Earl wasn't ever going to do anything like that to me. And they put it off like I don't know who all know. I don't know if Undertaker and Pritchard and Cornette. I don't know. I don't know if any of them knew.
Taker out of that. You know what I mean?
But do you think Cornette and all them knew too?
I think it was Cornette's idea.
Especially when it comes to the Undertaker, because the Undertaker showed the next year waiting in Gorilla for Mike. If Michaels didn't drop the belt to Austin, he was literally going to kill Shawn Michaels.
I think he was not a Shawn Michaels fan.
That.
Yeah, he was. He said as soon as that match ended, he took all his tape off it and then walked back to the locker room after that WrestleMania match.
He wanted to make sure he did the business.
Yeah, because at first
Shawn didn't want to with the Mike Tyson match.
Yeah.
He didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, but you look it up. It's, Taker was waiting in Gorilla to if Michaels didn't drop the belt, he was literally going to kill. I think Michaels.
Yeah, I mean it's.
But it just shows how much Taker means.
Yeah.
And if he's sitting at, it's just.
It's something we'll never. I mean, they're never.
We'll never get the full truth.
They'll never admit it either.
No,
I think
the people that
it makes money
truly know, like, are taking this thing to the grave, or they're milking it for everything it's worth.
Yeah,
I just don't understand. I can see why people think it's real, but I really see the side that it's not. I think that it was all because of the way that Vince ran with it.
Yep.
And he signed off on the documentary back when there was no internet. That was like. There was America Online, but you couldn't get online and find documentaries or videos or articles about the insides of the wrestling business. You know, like there wasn't shoot interviews in '97. There wasn't none of that stuff. But like the fact that they ran with McMahon's character, and it just so happened that he formed that character the night after that happened.
Yeah.
Like if you really screwed over one of your best friends and stars of this company, you're just going to be like, oh, well, I don't have no sympathy for Brett. Brett screwed himself.
Well, and let's take it back even further. Like Chance was saying, like the early 90s, like this Mr. McMahon character was created in Memphis. Another one of those things created in Memphis. So they had time to fine-tune and tweak this character.
Jim Cornette.
To make this thing what it was right after this event happened. And again, you had the Rock versus Mankind match where they kept referencing the Montreal Screwjob. Just at the beginning of the pay-per-view itself for the Survivor Series, they were talking about, is he going to leave with the belt? Like, they were already bigging up the opportunity for them to screw somebody out of that match. And it's just so many little things you didn't pay attention to before that now you have the opportunity to go back and just look at and pay attention to that make me think that there were 10 to 12 people were in on this thing. And they're carrying it to this day.
I think Brett, Vince McMahon, and Shawn Michaels were the only 3 people that knew about it.
You think that's the only 3 that knew about
that
it?
night? That night, I think that was the only
and then
3 people.
Everybody else got filled in after it was over, and then it was like, we're running with this shit.
Yep.
I could see
that's
that.
Different take, yeah.
I could see that because when Bruce Pritchard talks about it, he said he was hot as fuck at McMahon because, like, why didn't he know? And he said, if I would have told you, then you would have knew.
Yep.
And then you would have had to carry that. He said, I didn't want to put that on you.
And I think
So I could see, I can see that being
a good
for real.
point.
I can see Taker not knowing. I can see it just being a thing where they're like maybe.
It happens.
think
and then you
poss-
sit everybody down and be, hey, this is.
I think that Cornette. I think that Cornette is the one that threw it out there,
But didn't know they were going to use
but
it.
didn't.
Yeah.
But they were
That's
just
why
trying,
he was scared and left.
Yeah, because he that's what he says every time is that as soon as that match ended, he was like Earl Hebner.
But-
He packed his shit and was gone.
I think-
Hebner met him in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I think possibly Cornette and the wrestlers that was involved, like British Bulldog, Owen Hart,
Triple H had to
maybe
be in
Triple
on it.
H and China, maybe like those people could have possibly known.
Well, they were waiting
But-
in Gorilla because apparently there was going to be a run-in.
Yep. But I think that night that it was
Wasn't
just
it like
those
Savio
3
Vega
people.
or somebody was supposed to run in that match?
No, it was supposed to be Davey Boy, and
Yep.
we were going to run into that match. And it was going to be a DX and
Or
Hart
maybe-
Foundation run-in.
Okay, well maybe Bruce was talking about Savio was with him at Gorilla for something else, but
Well, how was Savio in Gorilla position? What was he doing there? He
Hanging out.
Hanging out, having a brewski.
Yep.
But man, I don't know, man. It's something
Cold
to think
Steve
about though.
Weiser.
But I'm glad we got to talk about this because it definitely leaves. It's going to be an interesting conversation that we can have with people that follow the channel and follow the wrestling to see what y'all think about it because there's not really a way we're ever going to know.
I did ask the question a couple pods ago where do you think this is one of the most recognizable matches in WWE? And I found a thread on Reddit, and it said the number 1 most recognizable match is Hogan and Andre. And then it said Taker and Mankind, the Hell in a Cell, and this was third. So
I could see it being
just
third.
based on
Yep.
the finish alone for this puts that in the top 3 most recognizable matches in wrestling history.
And
Was it
that's-
Stone Cold and Bret Hart one right behind it?
It was like in the top 5.
And it was a genius way to do it because Vince got what he wanted. He became the star.
He's really the only one that came out on
Yep.
top in this whole thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, because like we said, Sean drops the belt at
Next
WrestleMania
year.
the next year, and he's gone for how many years after that?
Well, he came back as commissioner, but he didn't wrestle again until 2002 SummerSlam.
Did anything memorable happen after the screw job that anyone can remember?
no,
The
because
build up for Austin, and that was it.
It fell flat because, like I said, once Sean won the belt, then he goes out with the back injury.
Yeah.
He's gone for.
He gets in. So Survivor Series '97, Shawn wins the belt. January of '98, he has a match against Undertaker, and that's when he gets thrown out the ring and tweaks his back.
Yeah.
So it's the next pay-per-view, big pay-per-view.
And Stone Cold wins the Rumble.
It was a rumble.
And
98
then-
Rumble, and then WrestleMania 14, you had Austin Michaels with Mike Tyson as the ref.
So 6 months after, he drops the belt.
Yeah.
But
So-
he got injured a month after. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the next big pay-per-view 2 months later.
So it's kind of like, man, you did all this for
Maybe it
nothing.
was karma, bruh. You know what I mean?
But I mean, you set up all this stuff, and it's just like, damn, it falls flat within 6 months.
Yeah, but like I said, I say it's a work, but we're never gonna know.
No,
I said
And
it's
I'll
a work.
always stand on that. But I
like
love
Cha-
watching it.
I like Chance's. I've never thought of that before. We have Chance.
Yeah, I think your input about those 3 people knowing, and I feel like
I mean,
everyone else is filled in after the fact.
Yeah.
one
They had a
thing
suspicion it may happen.
one thing that made me think that Cornette was in on it was, or that at least it came up with it, is because he told the story about Ed the Strangler
Yep.
Lewis and
Yep.
the original screw job in Montreal, and
Yeah.
and then he also said, he's like, if anyone thinks it's a work, they're an idiot, and even talking about like Scott Hall and stuff, and
Yeah,
but Jim Cornette's old school, so even
Yeah,
if he
protecting
did
the
know,
business at all
he's not
costs.
gonna say.
no, dude.
Was
There
it
you
him
go.
that also said that Vader gave Bret Hart a warning? Don't get caught in
think
any
so.
submission
Yeah, and
moves
that
when you
too,
go out
like,
there?
dude, your family is this business. They're in the wrestling business. Like, if I'm not even a wrestler, but I know if they would have told me that they're gonna put my finishing move on me,
Nope.
I'm like, nope, no, I'm not doing that.
It ain't
I know what's coming out of this one.
Bret Hart was he could have seen that coming a mile away.
And
Like,
he even gave
would've
him
known.
the leg. If you watch that,
Yep.
he says,
and fixed it for
Sean
him.
didn't know how to put the move on, so I had to move my leg for him to put it on.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you have the suspicion that you're going to get screwed, why are you giving him your finish?
It's God.
Yeah, there's way more evidence.
There's more conspiracy theories on this than
No,
the
I'm
freaking
telling you.
Kennedy assassination.
There's so much more evidence, though.
Yep. And then there's so many different stories, like
Yeah.
we were talking about earlier with the punch. Some people saying that Undertaker said he don't know how that punch got through so many people.
Right.
But
Yeah.
then if it's an uppercut, like
And
And
all
he
we're
breaks-
hearing is there were 3 or 4 people in that
Yep.
locker room, and
Yep.
not
And
a
then
whole.
all of a sudden, and then he gets his ankle broke by the
yeah.
squabble
So
going
it's,
on in
it's
there.
just too.
But yet
too
he's
many
walking out of
inconsistencies.
there just with a little bit of a limp.
He's stumbling.
Yep.
I mean, he's stumbling. You could tell he got hit or he's playing it off. He's
And I
selling.
could see Brett and Vince saying, "Hey, just give me one,
Yeah,
to the
give
side of the
Because
head
they locked
or
up.
whatever."
Why
Yeah.
are you locking up in a fight? If I know
Yeah.
someone's finna hit me, I'm staying back
Yeah,
ready to
it-
jab.
Because
you know?
they can say whatever because they don't have no footage of
Yeah.
it. So
Yep.
they can just
That's
they can
it.
say he karate kicked him in the head. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
And
that-
you're
they know where
filming
to
a documentary, but you're not gonna film that part.
Well, and they can't say that we couldn't be in the locker room because bullshit. You were in the locker room when Brett come up to. I mean, when
Sean
Sean
and
come
Brett.
up to Brett
Oh,
and
work,
everything.
bruh. It's a
Yep.
work.
And you gonna tell me that they didn't know that Brett had a fob on him when he went into that meeting with Vince to talk?
Yeah.
Like Vince is
And
smarter
that-
than
and
that.
that-
And he has
and
his
that
son in
wasn't
there and
even-
everything.
Yeah, come
and then,
on, man.
And then his Brett's wife going up on Triple H
Yeah,
right there. in
Vince is
the
smarter than
hallway.
that. He
Yep.
knows. I mean, he knows better.
Yeah,
It's wild, man.
he
It's
beat the
wild.
government. He knows.
Yeah, this is very true. Multiple times, I think.
Multiple times.
Old Vinnie Mac.
Part 500
man.
coming soon.
We appreciate y'all, man.
Yeah, this is fun.
This was dope to be able to do this. This was the first type of episode we've done
Yeah,
like this
like
where we
a
cover a situation in wrestling history that we kind of just
This just
Give our
shows that
opinions
we can tackle the stone.
Controversial topics.
Yeah,
Yep.
that and like picking out like the Stone Cold run.
yeah,
and
that
just
stuff too for sure.
spotlighting that kind of stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let us know what y'all thought of this episode. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to follow all of us. The links are in the description box. And also shout out to the sponsors, man. You got Trouble Spirits. You got Revolution One Media. You got the Natural Motherfucking Disasters.
We out this motherfucker.
Peace.
Good shit.